Hello all YouTubers, I am the Weather Dude. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you all for tuning back in this weather presentation for September 3rd, 2019. It's time to stick the red flags in the ground. We have Hurricane Dorian making impact on Florida right now. It's not making landfall, but it is definitely impacting them in many ways, which I will show you in this video. Also, I'm going to be talking about those 4 other tropical entities and one recently named Tropical Storm Ferdinand. Or Ferdinand, I just call it Ferdinand because that was the movie that came out 2 years ago. The animated movie, but I call it Ferdinand. But Tropical Storm Ferdinand just got named, and it could impact northeastern Mexico, as well as Brownsville, Texas. So we got Ferdinand, we got Dorian, and 3 other tropical areas to watch, including some invest. So let's get right into it here. As always, you know the drill. Please subscribe, share this video, ring the bell notifications, never miss a video again. And look in the description, please, for other videos of mine with superior weather content they won't find anywhere else. You won't be sorry that you did. Alright. Oh, that's my thank you slide. Let me just put that over here for a sec. There we go. Now you know what my thank you slide looks like. Okie dokie. Real quick, the Weather Channel, of course, is, like a major, TV weather company as well. Just, consider subscribing to their YouTube channel. They have great, weather, experiments, like dangers of storm surge. If you're getting hit by Dorian right now, that's kind of, something you want to watch. And just a bunch of cool weather videos. And if you have, they recently came back to Fios, so Xfinity or Fios, you can watch them as well. So we're going to talk about a Dorian first here. So the most likely arrival time of tropical storm force winds. I also have the probability of tropical storm force winds on here. So even Atlanta has a little chance to see tropical storm force winds from Hurricane Dorian, but the greatest chance will be on the east coast of Florida, southeast coast of Georgia, coast of South Carolina, North Carolina, up through maybe Virginia Beach at the tippity top there. But most of the brunt of the storm stays offshore, but still, these are the probability of seeing winds of 39 miles an hour or greater, 39. So, some guidance has been pushing a little bit west after at least Florida. I mean, we know where it's going to go as it moves up Florida, but after that, does it come on shore North Carolina? If so, could the mid-Atlantic get affected? I mean, we're still, how many days out? It's Tuesday, right? We're still like 4 days out. So it's a little uncertain. But again, across the mid-Atlantic, if you do see tropical storm force winds, they will come Thursday night and into Friday morning. And if the coastal New England, if you see tropical storm force winds, they will come Friday night and Saturday morning. And they actually have a decent chance to see tropical storm force winds up in like Nova Scotia, up in Halifax. You guys will see it by like Saturday afternoon, Saturday night. Alrighty, and of course Florida's seeing it right now. Who would have known? Alright, so greatest flash flood risk over the next 3 days. And you can see over a 3-day period, again, it's going to be coastal South Carolina, coastal North Carolina, and even near Savannah, Georgia. So Savannah up to Cape Hatteras here, along the coast. You're going to have a moderate chance to see flash flooding, exceeding a 6-inch guidance, potentially. And what's weird, and it's happened before when you have to evacuate from hurricanes, is that on I-26 in Charleston and I-16, I believe, in Savannah, they reversed all the lanes and make them turn away from the coast. So they're all reversing all lanes westbound on I-16 in Georgia and I-26 in Charleston, South Carolina. So really interesting. I just find that so weird every time they do that. But the United States rainfall, again, this is valid from 8 o'clock a.m. today through 8 a.m. on Sunday. So with that being said, again, Space Coast, First Coast, you can see some 4 to 6 inch rainfalls totals from like Melbourne up through about Jacksonville, then up through Savannah. But we could even see 6 to 10, even more than that, from coastal Carolinas here. Even like near Wilmington, North Carolina, Cape Hatteras could even see maybe 10 to 15 inches of rain. So really, even though it's moving fast, it's going to dump a heck of a lot of rain. And you know where it's done that already? Yep, the Bahamas. And guess what? They're going to see a lot more of it. Maybe another 2 to 4 inches widespread with isolated totals up to 5 inches more than what's already fallen. So there's now hurricane watches and tropical storm watches all the way up to North Carolina. They're almost in Virginia. They're making their way north. Bahamas are still under tropical storm warnings. I guess conditions are not deteriorating. They're getting better. I don't know if that's called deteriorating or not, but they're getting better. I'll just say that. West Palm Beach have been downgraded to a tropical storm warning, but nonetheless still be prepared. Orlando and even inland areas still in a tropical storm warning. And west of that, we got a tropical storm watch. Jacksonville up through Savannah, Georgia, you have a tropical storm warning. Although I wouldn't be surprised. I think Savannah might be under hurricane watch. But Charleston's under hurricane warning now. So that means hurricane conditions are expected within 36 hours. Of course, a watch means that they're possible within 48 hours. But even in the interior Carolinas, like Columbia, Charlotte, Raleigh, Durham, you guys are even under tropical storm watches, or maybe they're just to the east of you. But coastal North Carolina, Wilmington, up to Hatteras, you're under a hurricane watch. Alrighty, so with that being said, here's the track. The hurricane hunters, as a matter of fact, are flying into the storm. We're going to get an update in about a half hour. Again, as I usually do, since I'm just going to miss that advisory, I will make a comment below and even in the live chat with the premiere. But again, it's going to make that continue on its journey north, make that turn. But you can tell by the way the lines are shaped, it's going to kind of cut east and then back in a almost like a more westerly turn. So where that happens, like we used to have the cone all the way up through central Delaware and central New Jersey. That's been moved way far south, but it can go back just as quick as it went away. So it is down to a Category 2 hurricane, a very powerful Category 2 hurricane with winds. That's the maximum. Like literally, if the winds were 1 mile an hour more, this would have been a Category 3 hurricane still. 110 miles an hour. And I'll tell you, Jim Cantori is live in Stuart, Florida. It's almost like the scene behind them was like with Hurricane Barry when it hit New Orleans and Lake Pontchartrain. Well, it's almost like that scene behind them where you got waves that would just hit the seawall, explode up, that would be like 10 feet tall, and just push on land and cause some coastal flooding. Definitely a lot of beach erosion. And Florida's already suffering from that issue, and this is only going to make it worse. Alrighty, so we have storm surge warnings, which means storm surge and coastal flooding is expected within 36 hours. That is from Charleston, or actually North Charleston, Charleston, down through Savannah, through the First Coast, Space Coast, Jacksonville, Palm Coast of Florida there. In other words, down the East Coast of Florida is what I'm trying to say. And even down through Melbourne, Palm Bay, and Port St. Lucie, and it stops before West Palm Beach. That's the areas where storm surge warnings, storm surge watch, which means we have coastal flooding and storm surge possible within 48 hours. That is for Wilmington, North Carolina, and Jacksonville, North Carolina, not Jacksonville, Florida. 2 different places. Alright, so this only goes out 3 days, so that's why like places like, Maryland, you don't really see any storm surge guidance yet, but it goes out 3 days. So, again, Melbourne, Palm Bay, you guys down there, maybe isolated spots being greater than 3 feet, but most of the surge now making its way up to the Space Coast and Cape Canaveral. But really, I think the worst surge will actually be once we get up the coast to about South Carolina, actually. Look at some pretty significant storm surge. Look at this right here. So this is South Carolina. I'm just checking. Okay. We actually do have an area that you can see some storm surge greater than 6 feet, which is like some of our highest storm surge totals yet. So something really interesting that we have to watch here. Even parts of North Carolina could see 3 to 6 feet of storm surge. And they just got devastated by Florence last year, and they probably still cleaning up from that one too, maybe. Here's a track from the National Hurricane Center. I showed you a very similar one here, but this is the same thing just from the National Hurricane Center. Alright, so you can see H's, all these H's. You might be thinking, well, why is there a black H there and a white H over there once it makes its way into Canada? So white H basically means that it is a post-tropical cyclone. It is not organized. It is not, heat. It's not like a heat engine like a hurricane. It's like kind of like how a nor'easter is. It's like a post-tropical cyclone, but it will still have hurricane force winds with it. Kind of like how Sandy was when it hit Delaware and Jersey in 2012. That's kind of the same thing. But still, that doesn't mean just because it's a post-tropical cyclone, it's still packing hurricane force winds. So you still have to be prepared for hurricane up there in Nova Scotia, Halifax, and even up through Newfoundland. Oh my gosh. Ugh. But the good thing is the ocean temperatures will get very cold, so. And probably maybe even a lot of wind shear, so. That'll have to take this storm down really quickly. But that's your track for the National Hurricane Center there. And now we're going to move on to Ferdinand. Yes, it's Ferdinand, whatever. It recently just got named earlier this afternoon. And you're like, well, if it got named a tropical storm, why is it going down to a depression and back to a storm again? Well, that's because it was named a tropical storm after the 1 p.m. Central Time advisory. So the 5 p.m. advisory, all this stuff will all be fixed. But it could make landfall with 45-mile-an-hour winds with wind gusts up to 60, 65 miles an hour, making landfall potentially in the northeastern part of Mexico. yet still impacting places potentially like Brownsville and Corpus Christi in Texas. You can still have some winds of 30 to 39 miles an hour plus. So some tropical storm force winds are possible. And you can see from Brownsville down through the northeastern coast of Mexico, we do have tropical storm warnings, which means, again, tropical storm conditions, winds of 39 miles an hour or greater, and some rain, of course, is expected within 36 hours. So it's probably going to make landfall tomorrow evening. Hopefully I can try to do a video on it. But see, the great thing about Mexico is that there's so much elevation, there's so much, like land and dry land, that as soon as a storm comes on shore, like, it just gets torn apart. Like, it doesn't even have a chance. Like, if a storm were to move through, like, the southeast United States, like, move inland, it would take a lot longer to weaken than the same storm moving in a place like Mexico because of the elevation, the mountains. They just tear the tops apart of these thunderstorms. Even Hurricane Patricia was like a Category 5 back in 2015, and it was like a tropical depression as soon as it came on land because it just got deteriorated by the mountains. So, Thursday morning, maybe, just maybe, could it bow echo a little bit to the east and get lashed up with some kind of cold front? Yes, but it's probably going to weaken. It's probably going to like deteriorate and just dissipate before that even happens. But still, you could possibly have some, 60, 65 mile an hour wind gust, and maybe a little bit of coastal flooding, maybe like a foot of storm surge. They haven't even put out maps for that yet. But again, here's your same interactive map here. 45 mile an hour sustained winds with wind gusts to 60 miles an hour as it makes its way onshore. Here's the probability of having winds of 39 miles per hour or greater, which is the probability of having tropical storm force winds. And as you can see, we do have about a 30 to 40% chance in the northeastern part of Mexico, but it's probably going to happen. But again, even all the way north in the Brownsville and Corpus Christi, you guys have about a 1 out of 10 or even 2 out of 10 chance to see tropical storm force winds. If not, you might have occasional wind gusts of 30 miles an hour, no big deal. Here's the chances of having winds of 58 miles an hour or greater, and this is going to be your area where you have the strongest winds, because that area has the strongest winds. And it's going to be the area. What am I trying to say here? Yes, it's the area with the strongest winds in the first place, so therefore it will be the area that has the highest probability to see, higher winds than expected. That's what I'm trying to say. I kind of lost my thought there. All right. Let's look at our current storm map for tropical tidbits. Again, thank you, Levi Cowan. Here's Hurricane Dorian, really kind of weakening, but it's growing in size. And that means a lot of the, convective activity can make it over to Florida. And who knows, it could grow even more. Like, look at this. The radius of circulation is like 200 nautical miles. It's like crazy. That's probably like over 250, 300 miles. Pressure is up to 959, so that's showing signs of weakening. Wind gusts are still Category 4, like in the Category 4 range, but sustained winds are Category 2. Alright. So let's make our way down here. You can see a lot of the models and agreements can move up to shore of the Carolinas here. Going into weekend from Category 2 on downward. Here's Ferdinand. Winds of 40 miles an hour. And you can see how, it's pretty wrapped. I mean, it's decently organized. Enough for a weak tropical storm at the very least. Alright, so let's go here. Here's a model track guidance here. Again, if these northerly tracks are correct, then we see more of a threat to Corpus Christi and Brownsville. However, if the southerly tracks or the middle track is right, we see less of a threat there for Corpus Christi and Brownsville. But nonetheless, a little, onshore flow could bring some coastal flooding. I wouldn't be surprised they issued coastal flood advisories. Let me see if they did that right now. I doubt it. Let's go down to Texas. No, they did not. But there are tropical storm warnings, of course, far south of Texas. Alright. National Hurricane Center, I'm going to go to their home website here. And, whoa, we have new development. Tropical Depression 8 just formed. Wow. I am astonished. Like, literally, 10 minutes ago, that wasn't even there. Okay, Atlantic hurricane season is really ramping up here. Alright, now you got something else to talk about. Awesome, right? Tropical Depression 8, winds of 35 miles an hour, pressure of 1006. And, okay, this is from, like, months ago. What is this? Okay, not what I clicked on. Okay, Tropical Depression 8. Okay, for some reason, I'm getting when I click on that, I'm getting a storm that is from, like, July. Okay, weird. Alright, well, maybe by the time we get to the 8 o'clock or 5 o'clock update, maybe they'll give us an idea. I just don't know why it's acting like that. Alright, weird. But we do have Tropical Depression 3 now forming. And we have so let's go through each of these because it's going to be kind of confusing. Disturbance number 1 which was originally named Disturbance 1, has now become Tropical Depression 8. It's moving at northwest at 8 miles an hour. Again, if I tried, it does not work. That is weird. Alright, maybe just gotta give it a little bit of time because it just got recognized. But Disturbance number 2 just got named Tropical Storm Ferdinand, with actually pressure's gone down 1,004 now. And Disturbance number 3, actually Disturbance number 3, yes, this was Disturbance number 3, now it's 2. It was like a 50% chance of development, maybe up to 60, but then it dropped to 30, now it's back up to 50 again, so conditions must have got, favorable again. So 50-50 shot at development, maybe next couple days. If not, it's going to be not a threat at all to any land except Bermuda. And our last disturbance, 4, which has now become Disturbance 3, because when a storm gets recognized as a tropical depression, we lose the number from the disturbance. So this becomes 3 now, but still a 4th disturbance. And now we have 5 tropical entities in the Atlantic Ocean. And a 70% chance of development in the next 5 days. That's why you don't see any X, because the storm is still like all the way out in here. But it's going to make its way off, and it's not going to develop in the next 2 days, but maybe in the next 5 days. Just something to point out there. Alright, wow, Tropical Depression 8. Here we go. Alright, so intensity guys with Tropical Storm Ferdinand. I don't know why it's called 7 from earlier update, but you can see it's not going to last long. I agree with these models here. It's not going to, maybe sustain tropical storm conditions or tropical storm force winds for maybe about, a day or day and a half, and then it's going to take a plunge. These models, they must be, a little crazy. I don't know what they're taking, but that's not something for me to worry about. But, they could be right, but I don't see this becoming a hurricane by any means. Alright. So here is the aircraft reconnaissance. I'm going to refresh in this because plane left Florida and they're going to discover Ferdinand. Okay, and they have not arrived yet. But where they have arrived is right here in Dorian. This hurricane underhead graph should be done soon. It's going to get us latest update for the 5 o'clock advisory coming in about 20 minutes. And you can see we're finding winds of 96 to 113 knots right in that, eastern eye wall here. So if we equate that in our my little special conversion chart here. Alright, 96 knots, that's 110, 96 to 113. So I actually wouldn't be surprised if they strengthen this to 115 in the next update. That could happen. Because in the eastern eye wall, we're seeing a really nice flare-up of convection. And it was supposed to, it was weakening. It's on a weakening trend, but they said it could spike up a little bit more before continuing its weakening trend. So I would not find that a surprise at all if they made it 115, which is a Category 3 again. But if not, probably going to keep it at 110 for the next update. Here's a satellite loop. Okay, again, you can clearly see there's an eye. It's just not as, organized. It's like when it first became a Category 1 hurricane. That's what it looks like. But really, really large storm here. And it's all north and east field. There's really not much stuff to the west. But still, Florida's getting battered by wind and waves. And here's Ferdinand here. Actually looks like it's moving pretty fast to me, but you already got some convection here already moving into Mexico. So it's like, all the stuff is to the west of the storm. It's dealing with some moderate to strong wind shear right now, so that's why it's looking a little elongated. Okay, I forgot to slow this one down. Alright, so this, I believe, let me see. I do believe this is Invest 91L, which became Tropical Depression 8, and then this is like 92L. Let me see if I'm right. Yes, I'm right. Okay, yay. So this is Tropical Depression 8, which was 91L, but it's become Tropical Depression 8. And you can see there's definitely an area of circulation. Now, it's just not too defined. We do see a flare-up of convection on the northeast side, but it's just like one big strip of thunderstorms that looks like this. So it's just not very organized, but certainly enough to be called a tropical depression, I guess. Here is, this is the tropical storm. It's not an Invest at all, actually, I don't think. Oh, no, this is the Invest 92L. You can see there's Bermuda right there. And luckily for Bermuda, thank goodness, that there seems to be a lot of wind shear coming from the west here, which is kind of helping to push all the thunderstorms to the east, keeping it away from Bermuda. Thank you. Bermuda can say thank you to the wind shear, because you can just see, look at these strong, upper level winds. So everything, it's just like the center of the storm is like over here somewhere, and like all the storms are just over here. So it's not looking very organized, but the chances did go up yet again for potential development. Dorian is picking up speed. It is now moving northwest at 5 miles an hour. Now, here's the thing that scared me a little bit. And you're going to see more rain bands coming to Florida than expected because, as I can show you right here on this map, I don't know how updated it is at all. No, that doesn't really quite show. But it came through, the Bahama Islands right here, stalled, came up, and it recently took a wobble to the west. Now, that's going to make a wobble to the north, then a little bit to the east, and back to the west again. It's going to go back and forth. But that little wobble to the west is sending some rain bands into Vero Beach, as well as Melbourne and Palm Bay. And look at this, we're even getting a outer band. And when you combine the the typical daytime heating of the day thunderstorms with the moisture from Dorian, you can see it's starting to fuel up some of these bands that are making it all the way to the west coast and even up to Tallahassee and Apalachicola almost. So that is pretty darn impressive. So again, the storm is growing in intensity, which means greater areas will get affected, even though it is weakening. The storm itself is weakening, but it's growing in size, and that's why more areas are going to get impacted than we thought. And there's even a rain band right now moving off the coast of Naples there near Fort Myers and Sanibel Island. Alrighty. So here's the radar here, base reflectivities. Okay, this was from like an hour ago. Let me try and refresh this real quick. Yes, run the Adobe Flash Player. Alright, so let's see. Yeah, okay, we got some nice updated radar here. And look at this. Melbourne is just now getting smashed with rainfall here. You're seeing like a nice little band moving through. And guess what, Melbourne and, Fort Pierce, you got all this coming. This is all going to try and make its way on shore. And actually, you know how like wind shear weakens hurricanes. If we got some wind shear coming out of the east, remember, wind shear doesn't really reduce convection. It doesn't really, make rain lighter. That's dry air. Wind shear just weakens the storm itself. It disorganizes it and weakens it. It doesn't limit the convection. It doesn't limit the thunderstorm activity. It's just tilting it. It's just making it, a little, elongated and lopsided. If we got some easterly, upper level winds to maybe, tear this thing apart and weaken it, you might think, well, that's a good thing. Yeah, but it's also going to push all that convection all the way over to the east coast of Florida. Even though the center itself can still be offshore. And remember, the center of the storm can never be moved by wind shear. The convective activity around it can be moved by wind shear. That's just what I'm trying to get at there. Look at the storm total rainfall we had so far off the coast here. 6 inches of rain. But you can see we do have some areas that have picked up a decent, inch or two from these rainfall bands. But luckily, the eye wall has not made it to shore and probably will not make it to shore until it gets to the Carolinas, let's hope. And maybe, let's hope it don't hit the Carolinas either, but that's looking kind of likely. Or possible, at least. Alright, so we're going to look at some weather cams. This is Ormond. Ormond, while we're waiting for that. Ormond is right here. Ormond Beach is near Cape Canaveral and just north of the Space Coast. So here's sunrise. You can see, look at the waves. And you can see some choppy surf making it all the way up here to the beaches here. So that's Ormond Beach. Next cam here we have is the Ponche Inlet. And the Ponche Inlet, again, is pretty much like just south of Daytona Beach. And there's Ormond Beach. So it's just south of Ormond Beach as well. There you have it. Alright, so look at the camera from there. Again, this afternoon, you can see it's an inlet, so it's like an ocean. We're going to have big waves, but, waves surrounding on both sides. That was actually yesterday afternoon. Okay, so let's wait for going through 2 o'clock. Now we're into 3 o'clock. Don't worry, this doesn't take long. Alright, look at that. We're at 6 o'clock already. Here we go. Here's sunrise. You can see it looks a lot more choppy now. Even on both sides, we're starting to get some water coming all the way up the inlet onto the sand dunes here. So some bad news for them in Ponche Outlet. Or Inlet. Inlet. Alright, so wind shear. This is for Tropical Storm Ferdinand in the western Gulf of Mexico. Wind shears will be weakening, allowing for some slightly more strengthening of the storm itself. But also the oceanic heat content will weaken. So it's like a positive and a negative. And also the ocean temperatures will be falling before landfall. So it's going to strengthen because obviously we got low wind shear, decently warm ocean temperatures, and some heat content. Couldn't even say that. So it's probably going to maybe at most maybe 50 mile an hour sustained winds at landfall with some wind gusts near 65, but that's about it at the very worst. So in northeast Mexico, you only have total tornado eating to prepare. This isn't going to be like Dorian by any means, but you still need to prepare anyway, just in case. It happens to strengthen. A strengthening of the storm from 50 mile or 45 mile an hour winds, which is projected right now, until like 60. It doesn't sound like a huge difference, does it? But it actually really is. And actually, let me go to the aircraft reconnaissance. Let's see if those aircraft people made it in the Ferdinand yet. If not, we'll just continue with the last dose of this video here. Okay, they're so slow. No, I'm just kidding. Well, I mean, you gotta fly out there. You gotta be cautious. I'm not blaming them. I was just kidding. But you know, they're in the Gulf of Mexico. They're making their way with the Ferdinand. Meanwhile, however, let me see if this map updated at all. 2029Z versus 2039Z. Okay, so it's got updated by about 10 minutes. And you can see that they did fly into the eye, and they're flying out of their first pass. They're gonna turn around and make a second pass and a couple more passes through the storm before it all is said and done. And you can see inside the eye, look how calm it is. Like peak winds of like 10 or 20 knots. It's like 15, 25 miles an hour at its peak in the eye. So it's pretty quiet in the eye. They found pressures of 958, which is slightly lower as opposed to 959. So like I say, either they're going to stick to 110 for the next advisory or make it a Cat 3 again with 115. That's probably going to be your most likely, you know, projections there from my perspective. It could weaken a little bit more. Who knows? Dorian, not really much to say here. It's going to run into a heck of a lot of wind shear and very cold waters. Yes, 11 degrees Celsius. And by this point, it's in the Arctic. That's why the ocean's so cold. In case you didn't know. And no heat content, too. Okay, battery saver mode activated. Screen got a little dark. That's okay. I'm done anyway. So, that is it for today's video. Thank you guys for watching. Again, I'll continue to update on the 5 tropical disturbances that are in the Atlantic Ocean right now. And there's just going to be, you know, a heck of a September there for the Atlantic. And look at that. We got Tropical Depression 8 to work. So here's your projection here. Tropical storm all the way as it moves northwest and probably out to sea. Could it become a hurricane? Maybe. Let's look at the maps real quick as we say our final goodbyes. If you're watching this live in the premiere, it's a good time, you know, ask your final questions. And here we are. So maybe strengthen to 40, 45, 50. And probably going to stay 50. Yep. So it's going to stay 50 miles an hour and then probably a weekend after that as it moves into cooler waters. So that is it for today's video. Thank you guys for watching as we check our 5 tropical entities in the Atlantic Ocean. Yes, 5. So thank you for watching. I'm the Weather Dude signing off until next time. Catch you guys next video.